I am back. New York City Baseball, past, present, and future. When I say I, I'm flying solo. Both co-hosts are indisposed. Marty Rose going to see his granddaughter for the first time. And I'm so excited about that. Marty's my old friend from second grade. First guy I ever really talked sports with. We were 10 years old discussing the Giants and Dodgers moving to California. And it wasn't a good 10-year-old birthday present. Let me put it to you that way. But he's got a granddaughter, and he's headed for New Jersey and back up to the Northeast from Florida. And that's kind of exciting. Richard Denninger's indisposed. I'm here. I've got a terrific guest, a returning fellow to the airwaves who hates the Yankees. Hey, what can I tell you? He even wrote a book about it, and he's got good cause for a lot of reason. Gene Hutmaker. I hope I pronounced that right, as my want to screw things up. Was that all right, Gene?
That was absolutely correct. Gene Hutmaker, okay. Also known as the Yankee Hater.
The Yankee Hater. You were on once before. We talked, and I don't think it's that you like the Red Sox that much. It's that you hate the Yankees more than you like the Red Sox.
Well, the Red Sox. Well, my main team is the Cardinals. I grew up Stan the Man, Solly Hemus, Red Shaindens, Ken Boyer, and I became the Yankee Hater for good reason. And the byproduct of being the Yankee Hater is you root for the Red Sox and the Mets, and of course anyone playing the evil empire. Now, just so you know, I do not hate Yankee fans because I have two misguided pinstriped sons and one 4.5-year-old granddaughter who sings "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," and when it says root for the home team, she goes root for the Yankees.
Granddad be damned.
Yes.
But so you're open-minded. At least some fans are fanatical to the point where they don't like fans of just because they're fans. Kids you grew up with. I remember growing up and not liking Dodger fans just because they were Dodger fans. Other reasons too, of course, but one or two in particular, that I just simply didn't like the guy, and because we just debate back and forth, and he had a great line for me. His name was Neil, and Neil had older brothers, so his older brothers taught him stuff. And in 1955, Jackie Robinson was getting quite up there, and traded to the Giants, as a matter of fact, and the trade that didn't go through.
Chock full enough won that one.
Pardon me?
Chock full enough won that one. He went as a vice president there.
Yes, he did. And Casey said when he was being criticized by Jackie Robinson with the Mets, he said, he's chock full of nuts. That's
he was great.
Absolutely great. But he's getting older, and I'm a 10-year-old kid, and 10-year-old kids can say things. Well, he's all washed up. And Neil says, he's better now than you'll ever be in your life. That's he put it all into perspective at 10. He was not far wrong on that one. That's
the thing about Jackie, too, is that play at Yogi Berra at home plate. Now, if he was
so
out
close, I gotta think he's safe. But Yogi reacted. You see different angles.
But the thing is, it's all
safe.
that was the fifth run of the game, and the final score was 6-5, and all the argument was moot because the Yankees won the game. I mean, Joe Collins had 2 home runs in that game, but it's all moot because that was the fifth run and made the score 6-5, and that's the way the score finished. And they're all arguing. Right. It didn't win the game or tie the game, or it's the Yankees won the game. So as a manager of 500 games, if I win the game, I don't care. I don't care about that play.
But let me tell you, we're about the same age, and we grew up in the early 50s following the Yankees. And a book came out in the 80s, maybe late 80s, early 90s. I think Phil Pepe wrote it, but Phil Rizzuto's name is on it. And it was about the 13 Yankees that played on all of the teams between 1949 and 1953, when they won 5 world championships in a row, which has to go down as the all-time greatest dynasty in the world. And growing up watching those teams, just for those teams, you didn't hate the players, you hated the management, I'm guessing.
Well, back then, I started following really in the middle of '53, and that's when the saying was, rooting for the Yankees was like rooting for United States Steel.
Right.
And so, like, a lot of people didn't like rooting for, like, the so-called bully. So that's why a lot of people, unless you were from the Bronx, did not like the Yankees. It was
yes.
And another thing, not just the Yankees, but from the 1949 to the second game of the 1957 World Series, every World Series game was won by a New York team.
And you could take it further, the participants were New York teams till like 1965,
right?
Or ex-New York teams, when the Dodgers playing in L.A. played the Twins in 65. It was a birthright to have, almost seemed like a birthright when we were kids, to have the World Series in your city. It was unbelievable. My favorite team was the New York Giants, and that's another story. When they left, I couldn't be a Yankee fan. They were the only game in town. We'd haunt Yankee Stadium. We'd be there all the time. Grew to love the respect, not love the players, just an undying respect, but we were kind of rooting against them. At this point, I even wonder why I rooted against them. I mean, they were New York. They were the team that stayed. How did you develop? A lot of it is shtick, I'm sure. When you wrote the book, it's great shtick, believe me. But I can't believe you really, when you look back, you don't really hate the Yankees. I'm guessing.
Hoping not the individual players. Like Mickey Mantle is the second best player I ever saw behind Willie Mays. So I'm like, well, Whitey Ford was the dominant lefty of the American League forever. To me, I'm anti-PEDers, and actually Roger Maris is the home run leader. So it's not like I do respect what they did as much as I hated it. The William McCovey line out to Richardson was probably one of my worst killers. Right, you know. That goes either way, and the Giants win the World Series.
Oh, absolutely.
But like I say, I don't hate per se the players. I had a high school player when I was in elementary. We had a pitcher to pitch for the 1965 Yankees, Jack Cullen. He was there for about a year or something. He was an all-state pitcher when I was in elementary school for my high school.
Did he have a brother who was an infielder?
No, I think that was
Okay.
No.
Different guy.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm thinking of...
Jack had a brother, I heard, that in the town that could even throw harder, but he wasn't all there. So, but Jack was a pitcher, and I rooted for him when he pitched because he's a Belleville guy. I grew up in Belleville, New Jersey.
What was your first Yankee game?
I went to a game in 1953, and ironically, there was an article by Bill Madden, and that was his first game, the sports writer.
Whoa.
He did an article on the first game.
He wrote a great book about the Reggie Jackson era Yankees. Terrific book. And that was his first game, too. Wow.
Mike Garcia beat Eddie Lopez. My mother was a North Bears fan until they traded her neighbor, Hank Barowie, in 1945 to the Cubs, and he became the last Cub to win a World Series game until this past season. But Mike Garcia
back a long time.
Mike Garcia beat Eddie Lopez 5-1, and Luke Easter hit a mammoth home run, like into the second tier down here in Yankee Stadium, and it was 5-1. That was my first.
Yeah, Luke. The name Lukey, he was a big guy. Luke Easter, and he was one of those who left his best game on the Negro League. They called it that. He left his best game there, as so many others, George Crowe and others, just weren't given a chance by the blight against humanity that was going on, segregation, and
it was the way of the total nation. I mean, not to blame baseball. The whole country was basically racist. And me as a Cardinal fan, I saw Ernie Banks, I saw Frank Robinson. I go, why can't the Cardinals get somebody? And when they finally get somebody, they get Tom Alston, who was supposed to be tremendous, and supposedly he couldn't handle with the pressure. And you really can't imagine how intense that pressure must have been for these black players back then, and he just couldn't do it. Meanwhile, Frank Robinson and Ernie Banks are killing my Cardinals, especially the Dodgers.
Well, a lot of it was the Midwest thing. They had to break through that craziness. Where they trained was crazy in terms of segregation. Eventually, the pendulum swung for the Cardinals. Kurt Flood, Gibson.
Yeah, well, Ken Boyer had a lot to do with that when they started to integrate. The Cardinals bought the motel. They bought the motel because they wouldn't let the players stay together. So Bush bought the motel, and so people would go by and they'd see blacks and whites in the pool together and so forth. But St. Louis was kind of racist.
This was in St. Pete.
Yeah, right. They bought their own. I read a great book for me, due to its glorious ending, was by Halberstam, October 1964.
It was a great book. Yes, absolutely.
And it explains the social aspects of the segregation then, and naturally, Ken Boyer was a big star. He was my guy. So. And he was
I'll tell you a story that Peter Golenbach told me about why the San Francisco Giants never became the St. Petersburg Giants. Bill White, who happened to have been a former New York Giant and went into the Army, ended up getting traded to the Cardinals for Toothpick Sam Jones. Bill White later became commissioner of the National League, and he remembered at that time, still does vividly, what blacks were put through by the city of, basically the city, the businesses in St. Petersburg in spring training. Before Bush bought the hotel, which happened to have been a terrific idea, these players, they liked it. They enjoyed going to families. Families would take them in during spring training and boarding houses and what have you. it was fine with them in a way, but in another way, first of all, and then they said you could stay at the hotel, but you can't go to the dining room and you can't be seen around the pool.
Right.
So 50 years later, some 50 years later, the Giants are about to move to and Bill White says, "Over my dead body." And exactly what he told Golenbach. Over my dead body will they get a team on my watch. And sure enough, he quit the deal, and that's why the San Francisco Giants, one of the reasons they came damn close to moving 3 different times before the gem of a ballpark was built in San Francisco, and with private money, I might add. So there's a dimension that goes into that. I think they changed the way things are going to be done with new ballparks from here on in.
Well, Moses was the reason that they had to leave, though. Robert Moses was the reason.
Oh, yeah, he was one. Yes, you could blame it on him. And the Giants, I think, were gone anyway. They were in Minneapolis.
Minneapolis they were supposed to be going. And then
right. But it was
O'Malley's
greed, overwhelming greed. It came down. Moses offered him the land in the stadium where Shea Stadium and City Park are now. And it came down, but it was in Queens, and it wasn't the name.
It wasn't Brooklyn.
It's the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Right.
It's across a piece of land, a little border, and the people in Queens are just the same as they are in Brooklyn. And they would have loved having a new ballpark. Can't blame it on. Not that he didn't make it easy.
He had access to where the Barclays Center for the Brooklyn Nets are. He had that all mapped out, and he had his architect had a dome stadium for there, and Moses wouldn't give it to him. Moses had he had connections and everything, and they wouldn't allow him to go there where the Barclays Center is, because that's right by where all the trains go. And as the Brooklyn fans were going into Long Island, they'd be able to get to the games by train, and it would be a domed stadium, according to the drawing plans. But Moses, he was adamant about having a team in Queens, and eventually he did get what he wanted, a team in Queens.
Right, but, again, it comes down to how many kids' heart are you going to break? And, baseball, it's kind of strange. It should be an eminent domain between the city and the team. In other words, the New York Giants, the Brooklyn Dodgers, should still be the name of those teams. The Mets were great. Don't get me wrong. I'm an original Met fan. I suffered 4 or 5 years after they left and wandered around and tried the Braves for a while and bought Yankee yearbooks to see if that would change my heart. I idolized the players. Unbelievable. They put 2 dynasties back to back under Casey that were absolutely amazing. But like you say, he was U.S. Steel. And I remember in 1960 sitting in the schoolyard, and on 90th Street, by the way, in Jackson Heights, and my friend says, Bud Daly just became a Yankee?
I remember.
Best pitcher.
The ace of the A's.
Best pitcher on Kansas City. Epitomized how we all felt, you included, about them being, they'll just go out and buy whatever the hell they want. And they bought Roger Maris, this, that, and the other thing. It's so I understand now. I'm reliving some of the feelings that I had.
Well, Hank Greenberg, the great Hank Greenberg, who was the general manager of the Indians, he stated it's easier to win the pennant when your farm team is in your league.
That great line. Arnold, I think, was the name of the Kansas City.
Arnold was buddies with the Yankees. That was one big thing. And I think the Kansas City had the Yankee farm team there, and they moved out
Right.
so Arnold could go to Kansas City.
Yeah, absolutely. That kept them going for a long time. Plus, they had a tremendous farm system. Weiss originally was the farm director before he became general manager. After Lee McPhail left, Weiss was the farm director and basically looked over the scouts that signed all these guys in the first round of the dynasty. So there was some genius there. Do you know, Gene, if there was ever a book, a definitive book on the life of George Weiss ever written?
No, probably the most might be in my book. Here's the George Weiss story with my father.
Please.
My father grew up in Verona, New Jersey, which is next to the Montclair. To make ends meet during the Depression, my father caddied at the Montclair Country Club. Well, my father was a Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig fan growing up in them times, and he would caddy for George Weiss, who was the director of the Newark Bears. And the Newark Bears were they said the Newark Bears could probably play in the majors. They were so good at that time. Anyway, George Weiss was the director or general manager of the Newark Bears. Well, in 1957, when Mickey Mantle won the MVP, even though his batting average was higher than the year before when he won the Triple Crown, his home runs and RBIs weren't as high. So George Weiss, the way he was, he tried to cut the MVP's salary by $10,000. Well, he also tipped his caddies the same way back in the 1930s. So my father changed his loyalties to the New York Giants with Mel Ott and Carl Hubble.
Nice.
That's when my father became a Yankee hater.
That has to be the acorn doesn't fall from the tree, and I'm guessing you hear all that around the house.
Right.
Hey, who did you listen to on the radio? I grew up listening. My grandfather had Red Barber on, even though we didn't like the Dodgers. We were Giants.
I only remember him as a Yankee. I don't remember him with the Dodgers. At 53, he went to the Yankees.
He was terrific with the Yankees. I still wonder how O'Malley ever got the team away from Mr. Rickey.
That was a lot of friction there.
Steal that away.
O'Malley didn't like Robinson either.
No, Red Barber, for instance, that's what brought the question to mind, was how O'Malley, besides taking the team away in total, he took the voice of it away,
right,
and he took the genius of the team away. And the genius of the team, Branch Rickey, Mr. Rickey, went on to the Pirates and Schnickles, my favorite word. He schnickled Roberto Clemente out of their farm system.
They were trying to hide him.
Right, and helped build the 1960 championship. So New York Ball is very interesting. Who was your favorite announcer?
Well, even though he had a lot of funny things, Ralph Kiner, I loved his voice. The whole Met crew. The whole Met crew was the three of them. Nelson, Murphy, and Kiner were really
right.
good.
Yeah,
in
retrospect, I enjoyed them. Initially, as a kid, being a new team was new, they were new. I don't think Kiner had any announcing experience before that. Bob Murphy came from the Red Sox, and Lindsey Nelson was known more for his football announcing.
Yeah.
He had the Notre Dame Game of the Week, if I remember correctly. He had that voice. He had the Lon Simmons kind of voice going for him that was fun to listen to, and he had a southern kind of twang, as most announcers, a lot of announcers
Right.
seem to. A country, a good old conversational way about them. That was enjoyable to listen to growing up.
Did you go to the Polo Grounds when the Mets opened?
I did indeed.
Now, as I recall, the foul poles, they're like 260 down the line.
Right.
I went to every Cardinal game when the Met Cardinals came to the Polo Grounds. I used to go to Greenpoint. I used to hang out in Greenpoint over my cousins. So we'd go to all the Cardinals and games. And any seat past the foul pole was $1.30. First come, first serve.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So I used to go. My cousin and me, we'd get there early because we're kids and we want to see batting practice and everything. And the players would bull throw at you out in left and right field. You kibitz with the players over there. But it was $1.30 for any seat.
Right, and there was that little cutout down the left field line that players and fans would sit and kibitz and what have you with each other, or kibbutz if you want. It could be any way. You're the guest. Okay.
Right. But it was very, very homey like. You know what I mean? Like Yankee Stadium was more sterile like, whereas it was more homey to be in the Polo Grounds.
A very interesting stadium. Did you, off the subject of New York baseball a little bit, did you ever get to see the Titans play in the Polo Grounds in those years?
No, I didn't. I never went to a Titans game, but we had one of our high school players was Jim Apple. He got in for one game with the Titans.
Oh, with the Titans? Okay.
Yeah, Jim Apple. He got him for. He was like on a taxi squad, and they needed him. He was one of our best football players ever from our high school. But
pretty cool.
I did go to the Gotham Bowl there. Remember the Gotham Bowl?
Was it the Titans against the Giants? How did that go?
When I first started growing up, you had the 4 bowls on New Year's, and you had one before that called the Gator Bowl. So you had them 5, and then all of a sudden you had the Liberty Bowl, the Blue Bonnet Bowl. So then New York decided to try and get it, and they had the Gotham Bowl. And Merlin Olsen and Utah State played Ronnie Bull and Baylor. So you had a team from Texas playing a team from Utah in New York City, and me and my cousin went to the game, and I think they had it listed for 15,000. It must have been 5. It was a cold December day, and I still got the program, and it must have been like 5,000 people there.
Well,
Merlin Olsen was like the Gatlin winner.
Ronnie Bull played with the Bears later on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that him?
Yeah. And Merlin Olsen was the Outland, I think the Outland lineman winner. But they only got like 5,000, and I think they said they had 15,000.
Hey, my mind skips around so much these days because I'm an old guy. You said Merlin Olsen. Rosie Greer, Merlin Olsen, Lamar Lunday, and one other guy made up a fearsome foursome that would compete with the Giants' fearsome foursome for greatness. They had Robustelli, Cabbage, Mudchalewski, and
Emlyn Tunnell in the backfield.
Greer. And the same Rosie Greer that we're talking about a few years later with that. Pardon me about the backfield?
Well, on the defense, Emlyn Tunnell.
Oh, Emlyn Tunnell, yes, terrific. And later Patton and Lynch and Erich Barnes when I was a kid. They were a super team, the New York Giants. Alex Webster was offensive running back. Mel Triplett, who would fumble. He's probably still fumbling stuff as we speak. I don't know.
That Del Schaffner?
Del Schaffner. I think they
Kyle Rote.
Yeah, Kyle Rote. Del Schaffner missed a pass that stands out in my head. We were talking about that the other day. Missed a very important pass. Kyle Rote was one of my favorites as a kid. Gifford and they had a guy named Morrison, an all-purpose back that came along. as I was getting a little older and ready to go into the Air Force, and lost a little fanaticism for during basic training. One of Kansas City, I can't think of his name, Kansas City chief died when I was in basic training in November of '65, and I can't think of his name.
Where were you in basic training?
I was at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas.
Okay. I was in Fort Devens, Massachusetts, in '65.
Ah, okay. You probably in the Army, I'm guessing.
Drafted. In fact, my retirement job is I'm a security in our high school, and I'm also the sports promoter in the sports security. And every once in a while, they'll ask me to bring in my trousers, my shirt, and my dog tags, and my boots, and my album, and give the Vietnam class.
Whoa!
In fact, one of the interesting stories in my book was we're in base camp, and we're around a mess hall, and they're talking about the '66. That's when I was there, October of '66. They're talking about the World Series game. Yeah, Mo Grabowski came in. He struck out a bunch of guys, and the Baltimore beat the Dodgers. And I go, really? How do you know that? I mean, here we are in the middle of the middle of the boonies. I go, oh, we have a communications bunker, and that they have the Armed Forces Station, and they have the radio on, and that always has to be manned 24 hours. So it's maybe a couple 100 yards from my 100 yards or so from my tent. So I found out who was manning it that night, and then I go, hey, look, I'm the third bunk over. Wake me up a half hour before the game, the next game. So that night the guy woke me up. And I went over there, and I heard Sandy Koufax's last game. Willie Davis made all the errors, and not knowing at the time, but Palmer beat Koufax 6-0 when I was in Vietnam. And the ironic thing is, the next game, since I was in the bunker, Wally Bunker beat the Dodgers 1-0.
Whoa. Hey, that's like I'm driving over the bridge when Billy Bridges played for the Warriors, and I'm driving over the bridge, and Billy Bridges got a rebound. I've never driven over a bridge since where I don't think Billy Bridges. Same kind of stuff.
Kansas State? Kansas State, right?
We were in Vietnam in '66.
Right.
Wow.
Operation Attleboro was a big operation of war.
Wow.
I even got a picture of me playing softball there.
In 65, 66, I came out to California. I was stationed at Travis Air Force Base, and I don't know if you came in or went out of Travis when you embarked or departed.
Well, I was over there 3 months, and my mother passed away. She had breast cancer surgery before I went. And there's a possibility, I tried to get out of going because of her recovery aspect, and they said, no, she'll be fine. So anyway, when they got me back, I was in the middle of the operation, and they said, well, we got to get you back to the States, and I flew from Saigon to Travis.
Really?
Then I had to get home, so I went to the San Fran airport and got a plane from there to New York.
Hey, I'll ask you this because this could be a 1 in a million thing. I would go down to that terminal and take GIs. I'd put my costume on, and I'd take GIs to the San Francisco airport in my old car and charge, it was a big old car, and charge them just what the bus would charge them from the terminal to the airport. Do you remember how you got to the terminal, from the terminal to the San Francisco airport?
Nah, I don't remember. I don't know whether the Army took me or I got a cab or whatever.
Well, no, there would have been a bus. You would have gone by bus, or it would have been me or my buddy who did this.
Maybe, because all I remember was landing it at Travis and getting off. And because they said how do you get back for the funeral? So I'm rushing back.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I just thought maybe I took you back in my Chevy.
That could be.
That could have happened.
But the thing is, I remember about that trip is.
Sorry about your mom. by the way.
I'll tell you, there was a silver lining in it, which is kind of weird. But we were circling like 2 hours. We were stacked up. We were like the number 6 plane circling around LaGuardia before we could land. That was like as long as the flight almost. But anyway, when your mother passes, I mean, how can there be a silver lining there now? About Vietnam,
there can be. No,
you know about
kidding.
Agent Orange? No, Agent Orange. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, you didn't get it.
Right. Okay. The Agent Orange hit the area where I was the same time that my mother passed, so I didn't have to inhale that stuff. And I was over there with my brother-in-law. Well, that's why I met his sister. And 60 years old, he got cancer from that Agent Orange. I didn't inhale any of that because that's the time that it hit. It was October of '66 in the area that we were at. And another thing,
now they can deny it. The government can spend 45 years denying it.
Well, the government's the government, and they.
And then tell you that, oh, wait, we find documented records. We know every inch of when everybody got Agent Orange, everybody was exposed to it. They suddenly come up with not only denying that Agent Orange could hurt you at the beginning, which they would, but now they're at the point where they could tell every GI when he got exposed to Agent Orange.
And the other second silver lining was I was with the 81 mortars protecting the 105 howitzer, so we weren't really like into the jungle. Our job was a defensive mechanism for the howitzers. So, but anyway, we were in Operation Attleboro for about like a week, 10 days or something like that, and things were pretty easy. We'd walk around the village that was close by, nothing going on. There's really nothing. And all of a sudden, I'm home, home for the funeral. I had 30 days leave. And all of a sudden, about 5-6 days later, a whole division of Viet Cong show up because they said, okay, Gene's gone. We could go in now. That's what I told the class. I was gone. They could go in. They said that,
Yeah. Yeah, they felt safe. You could imagine them talking to themselves. Had the Cardinals, how Cardinals do? Gene gone. Hope he catches a game.
Yeah.
No, only kidding out there. I can't edit this thing. I can't get it out. Nobody listens. It doesn't matter. They won't know.
1967, I was finishing up my career in October when the Cardinals won the World Series with Gibson, winning 3 games.
In 68.
67. 68, they lost.
Did they beat Detroit in 68?
No, 68. Lolich beat him in 68. He beat Gibson when
and they won in 67. Okay.
67, they beat Lonborg went on short rest, and they were both 2-0. But Gibson had another day rest, and Lonborg didn't. And Gibson was Gibson, so. And they had the bigger.
That was a strange trade. They traded Lonborg.
No, he had a good year with the Phillies.
Yeah, didn't he go skiing and break a leg or something?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what happens. So, were you a Gil? Well, you didn't like Gil Hodges then, right?
Oh, he was.
I mean, as far as
manager, as a kid,
as a Dodger,
as a Dodger, it's not like I didn't like all Dodgers at that time, but as a Met manager, he was, of course, terrific. They would not have won without Gil Hodges.
Do you think he should be in the Hall of Fame as a player? There's arguments on Facebook all the time about him being in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
And he's the most,
There are a number of players that are in that should be out. There are a number of players that are out that should be in. I can only speak for 3 of them that I would really love to be in. Gil Hodges, I would love to be in. Minnie Minoso,
absolutely,
I would love to be in. And Tony Oliva, I would love to be in. Love to have it. Those 3. There are others. Veda Pinson is right there.
Yeah, I got Ken Boyer, and
Yeah, I was going to say your guy Ken Boyer is
Billy
right there.
Pierce.
Okay, you can be objective, even though you hate the Yankees. Clete Boyer.
Personally, I'm for a big
Clete Boyer was the best fielding third baseman I ever saw.
But he couldn't,
I didn't see Brooks.
But he couldn't beat Al Brooks because Brooks had the reputation.
Right.
He had the reputation in the 1970.
I don't know where the reputation came from. The World Series, a well-deserved one when he went into the left field, third base.
He was known as a great fielder. He was known as a great fielder, not just stamped him as Nettles was great too.
Nettles was great too. I couldn't tell you who was better, Nettles or those three. And if you want to go back to be slightly before our time, Bobby Cox Billy Cox with the Dodgers.
I'm starting to read The Boys of Summer again, by Roger Kahn.
Yes.
I read it before. I just dug it out. I'm going to read it again.
Little schmaltzy, but what can I tell you?
Well, I'm a big Hall of Fame guy, and even as a Yankee hater, in my book I even commented I have no problem. I know Guidry didn't win 200 games, but he didn't get his first win till he was like 27. If you want to put Guidry, Mattingly, and Munson in the Hall of Fame, I don't have a problem. I'm a big Hall of Fame guy. I'm not a
Well, like Charlie Silvera, put him in as a trifecta. Charlie Silvera said that about Lopat, Reynolds, and Rashi. He told me that in an interview. Put him in as a trifecta.
Well, they outpitched the Hall of Fame tribe staff. The Indians would win 90 games all the time, but they'd fall behind the Yankees. You had Wynn, Feller, and Lemon, the three Hall of Famers, and then Mike Garcia he had some Hall of Fame type years, and then they would be winning 90.
They had Lesky and Mossy.
Yeah. Well, they came up in '54 though. They came up in the rookie year. They weren't there for the '53. From '48 to '53, they weren't there.
That's right. But your Cardinals had Rip Rapolsky. Was that a great baseball?
They had a real Polish lineup. They had Bilko, Paholski, Joe Presco, Stan Musial, Jablonski, Rapolsky.
Yeah, Jablonski and Rapolsky. Jablonski later went on. He was a New York Giant when I was a kid.
Right. Now, he had 2 years of 100 RBI years, yet they got rid of him to make room for Ken Boyer.
Well, it was a good move.
That turned out to be a good move. And I was 10 years old when that happened, and I became a Ken Boyer fan.
Yeah. Ken Boyer and his 9 brothers, I think he had like 9 brothers that played pro ball. 3 of them in the majors. And they were from a little town in Missouri called Alba, Missouri. And I was in the service at Travis with a kid named Dave McKinley. And Dave's mom was the postmaster general in that little town.
Okay.
So, there you go.
But they played against the Mantles. They were the Mantles and the Boyers were always playing against each other.
Absolutely, and we had Cash Beauchamp.
Right. I remember him.
His dad played and grew up in the same area that we're talking about. His dad gave up number 24 to Willie Mays with the Mets, and he played growing up against Mickey's twin brothers.
Right.
Growing up. So,
Mickey always said he had one brother was better than him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of hard to believe.
A little hard. A little hard to believe. Imagine what Mickey would have been with a combination of better rehab for himself, more self-responsibility.
Well, he didn't think he could live past 40. He said, "Screw it! I'm not going to live past 40 because no one in the Mantle men have lived past 40. His father died at 39. Nobody ever made it past 40. You're breathing in all that coal dust from the mines. Nobody ever. So he goes, "Well, I guess I'm gonna die too." And I think 2 of his sons have died already, a very young age.
Yeah.
So
the tragedy goes on, but he died from the effects of his demons, and
right.
Which I guess life's.
Whitey Ford was the cool one. Whitey Ford was the cool one, right?
Chairman of the board.
Right. Billy Martin and Billy Martin was probably the one I could not stand the most in baseball history.
Oh, I had a Billy Martin glove, and he would make these World Series. He made one catch in the World Series.
Oh, yeah. Saved it. Bob Opkazava was on the mound.
And your Joe Collins, who you mentioned, who's a pretty good ball player. Not a great one. Made way for Bill Skowron.
He was a platoon player there at first base, like a 250 hitter with some Yankee Stadium right field pop.
Right. And
he was there for the 5 years.
Didn't they have Johnny Mize and him? They were both left-handed batters.
Yeah, he had 25 homers one year for them in the part-time role, Johnny Mize, and he was the MVP.
Oh, Johnny Mize.
He was the World Series MVP in '53. No, '52. Johnny Mize was the MVP of the World Series, which was called the Babe Ruth Award. But Mize had 3 homers against the Dodgers.
Good trivia.
Yeah, well.
Gene, thank you. We're about at the end of it. I'm getting a cut sign from the executive producer.
Okay.
And,
thank you for having me.
I want to tell you, we're going to do this much more often because you're
just let me know.
I will, and the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, we have about 5 or 6 all baseball shows. And other sports as well. If you're into football, vintage football from those days,
I'm pretty good with that.
Put you down, and you can guest on the show with that.
I'm an old Detroit Lions fan.
I'd like you to be a part of this, Gene.
Sure.
And what a pleasure. Thanks.
My pleasure too. It was great talking with you.
All right, I'm going to end it by just telling you and everybody else out there to hang in there and to keep on keeping on. We'll be back next week. Robert will be with me. Robert Denninger will be the co-host. Marty will be up in Jersey, so he won't be with me for 2 weeks. Again, much mazel and brachas to you, Marty and Peg and the kids. And thank you again, Gene. See you next time, everybody. Adios, amigos and amigas.